Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is September 2nd, 2024. This is episode 267. Stand-up comedian, improviser, actor, and dreamer Paul Green, sharing my journey, my thoughts, my insights on pursuing a dream in your life. Mine happens to be in the comedy acting arena, but there are so many dreams out there, and I'm finding that no matter what it is you're pursuing, there is probably some consistent, ubiquitous principles and ideas and experiences that are probably to some degree or another relevant to all pursuits of all dreams, I think. So, this week, man, it's going to be a very interesting week. I am going to be driving out to Los Angeles, and I will be in LA for this entire week, performing at the Magic Castle. And then next Monday, I'm going to be down in San Diego doing a stand-up comedy show. And I am very excited. It is going to be an incredibly fun week. And yeah, just looking forward to that. And I've told the story about how I've got that gig at the Magic Castle a couple times. If this is your first time joining me, you may need to go back to some previous episodes, because I have told that story several times. But in essence, to me, it's just a reminder of when you're just showing up, when you are putting yourself in a position to meet people and to network and to add value to people's lives, whatever your dream is, that just cool things happen. Cool random synchronicities happen. And that is how I ended up with this gig at the Magic Castle. I did not move to LA thinking, hey, I want to play piano for a magic comedy duo in the Magic Castle a couple times a year. But that has happened, and it is an incredible experience and is so much fun. And that this opportunity really came to me. So, very much looking forward to that. So, other than that, I have some updates on things that I'm going to be talking about on the podcast. So, if you've been following along over the last month and a half or so, I have been commentating on the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, and I have found that I have not resonated with the book, or that I'm not really in alignment with the sort of the philosophy of this book and the ethic of it and the moral compass that the book operates from, and these 48 laws of power, how the book demonstrates those laws and really encourages the utilization of those laws in the pursuit of power. And I have just really found that I have no interest in gaining power the way that the book expresses is possible if you exercise these laws. And I gotta be honest, so I've been commentating on those laws, and it's kind of pulled me in this sort of cynical attitude, which is kind of interesting, because this podcast is really more about positivity and going for dreams. And here I was ending each podcast sort of deconstructing what I felt to be a somewhat morally bankrupt law to gain power in life. And, but that's what I was doing, and I started it, and so it just sort of became something that, I started it, now I'm going to finish, which I am going to finish, by the way, for all you OCD people out there who are like, oh, please don't stop please don't not finish out the remaining 48 laws. So I think I'm on law 45. So I've only got a few more days of commentating on this book. However, I have determined that I need to counteract this more cynical and negative book, or at least a book that I find to be somewhat cynical and negative, with a book that has philosophies that I do align with and that I feel have a more true north moral compass that resonates more deeply with how I choose to approach the world and how I find life to be fulfilling and meaningful. So, the other day, I was scrolling through the old TikToks and this little clip showed up, and it was kind of a self-helpy little, believe in your dreams or whatever. And, I'm all about those clips. Even if they're, somewhat trite or, somewhat reductive, it's like, hey, better to have just a little positive, tidbit of social media, in a what can be a sea of negativity. So this little TikTok video shows up, and it's a pretty basic self-help kind of tip, and at the end of it, it says something like, and if you like these tips, you should read The Power of, what was the book called? It was called The Magic of Big Thinking. And I just went, oh, that sounds like an interesting book. And throughout my life, I have always gravitated towards the self-help industry. I've read so many self-help books. I've done seminars. I've done Tony Robbins. I've done Dr. Joe Dispenza. I've done, workshops and, bought the books and did the audio books and have done the workbooks and all of the things. So the magic of big thinking, I was like, I've been reading this 48 Laws of Power, or listening to it rather, on Audible, and not enjoying it. And actually, it's putting me in a state of, I don't want to say contention, but it's because I'm not in alignment with it, then I feel the need to contend with it and say, hey, well, Robert Greene says that this is a law of power, and fair enough, but I don't necessarily agree that law of power will lead to a life of fulfillment. It may assist in helping you acquire the power that you desire, but I don't actually think that absolute power at all expense is a life well lived, at least not for me. So anyway, I'm reading these 48 Laws of Power. I'm ending my podcast with them and kind of just having this sour taste in my mouth. So I see that article, or not that article, I see that little video pop up on my TikTok, and I go, you want to know what? I'm going to go buy this book, The Magic of Big Thinking. I'm going to go buy the Audible. So I buy the Audible, and I start listening to it, and it was like instantly it resonated with me, and instantly I felt inspired, and instantly I started to analyze how I had been approaching my dreams, and how I've been approaching my stand-up comedy career and my acting career, and how I've been approaching the two-person comedy show that I've been doing with my buddy Josh Novi. And it really started to open up my mind to new ideas and new thoughts and opportunities for me to look at my own beliefs and actions and behaviors and mindset and all of that. And so then I was going, well, this is the book that I need to be listening to and studying and incorporating into my life. So I decided, I am going to start commentating on that book in addition to the 48 laws of power. So it's more like, I'll talk about the 48 laws of power, and I'm going to finish that up here in the next 3 to 4 days anyway. So that'll be done. But then I want to talk about the magic of big thinking and some of the principles that it's espousing. And once the 48 laws is done, then I'll really just focus on the magic of big thinking, and we'll go that route. So with that, let's start with the 48 laws of power. So let's start with what I don't like. So the 45th law. So we're almost there, everybody. We only got, 3 laws left? So the 45th law of power is preach the need for change, but never reform too much too fast. So this chapter was a little interesting because the chapter starts, hey, once you have a position of power, you need to preach the need for change, but be careful not to reform too fast because people are set in their ways. People have a resistance to change. People are traditionally more conservative and want to preserve traditions and preserve cultures and perform ways of doing things. And so if you come in and start saying, hey, everything is wrong and we need to change everything, then too much disruption or is either going to get you tossed out and thrown in the loony bin, or in olden days would get you lynched and beheaded. And furthermore, you're not going to enact any change. And it gives, the book goes on to give the example of a dude named Tom Cromwell, who I guess was like an advisor of Henry the Fifth or Henry the Eighth, who was the dude who started the Church of England, one of those kings. And anyway, just talks about how this dude just pretty much stood up and was like, all right, we're not doing Catholicism anymore, and then just told everybody, no more Catholicism, and then all the people rebelled because they loved Catholicism, and that was their religion, and like, it was too much too soon, and anyway. So, all right, this law, that's all fine and dandy. I don't necessarily have an objection to this particular law. It's like, I get it. As a society, we're always changing, we're always improving. There are so many atrocities that still exist. Organizations and governments all become corrupt, and money gets corrupt, and businesses get corrupt, and laws get corrupt, and there's injustice, and then, people need to stand up and say, hey, no, this is not good, this is not right, we need to make changes here. And then also, if you try to make too much change too fast, it's unsettling and can cause your movement to fail if you're trying to change too much too fast. So yeah, okay, that's all fine and dandy. I look at that and go, or that law, and go, okay, well, what does this have to do with me today? Sure, I see plenty of atrocities in the world. I see plenty of injustices. Now, am I standing up and trying to fight all of them? Not really. That's not really where I am trying to make my personal mark in the world. My mission is to try to become as funny and talented and influential as a performer as possible, so that I can spread love and joy through genuine comedy and genuine connection. That's how I am trying to make an influence, not necessarily standing up and waving a sign about how everybody else is wrong, although there is plenty of justification for that and plenty of need for that, because there's definitely plenty that is wrong. So when I see that law, though, I look at it and I go, okay, well, how can I apply that personally in my life? And instead of me trying to, change the world and change society, I can really only change myself. And I do think that there is a principle there, which is, how can I look at my life, determine what I need to change within myself, what either behaviors or attitudes or beliefs do I need to adjust so that I am more in alignment with what it is that I claim I want? And in that regard, I go, hey, like, Paul, I got to preach some change to myself. There are some things that I need to change. Assuming that if your life is not everything that you want it to be, then there are probably things you want to change. And so preaching change, and again, I'm turning this more into a self-directive as opposed to a societal directive in terms of this idea of, preach the need for change, but reform slowly. But I do think there is wisdom in that, because I cannot tell you how many times where I've gone, okay, I need to change my whole life, and it's like, tomorrow I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m, and then I'm going to run for an hour, and then I'm going to do 1,000 push-ups, and then I'm only going to eat vegan quinoa broccoli shake, and I'm never going to have another carb for the rest of my life, and then I'm going to build a multi-billion, blah, 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 And reality is I wake up the next day and maybe I do 25% of of this perfect, all-in, super productive day, top to bottom. And what I have learned is that the most valuable way for me to reform my life is to try to make the smallest consistent micro adjustment in a behavior or an attitude or a habit that I possibly can, with the understanding that, well, if I can adjust myself 1 degree, if I can change my direction 1 degree and then keep that change just 1 degree, well, it may not make much difference today. It may not make much difference in a week, but come about a year, come about 5 years, come about 10 years, that 1 degree adjustment is going to land me in a completely different place than had I not made that adjustment, right? It's like if I was leaving Phoenix, Arizona, due north, I would end up in Flagstaff. But if I, adjust my compass 1% northeast, well, then I'm eventually going to end up in Wyoming. I mean, you get the idea. So one of the most valuable lessons that I've had to teach myself when it comes to pursuing my dream is, how can I make a 1% adjustment more in alignment with what it is that I say I'm trying to accomplish? I'll give you one example. So I keep saying, it's like, well, I want to be this successful stand-up comedian, but writing comedy every day has been really, really difficult. So one of the adjustments I had to make is like, I need to be writing comedy every day, at least a little bit. And was I always perfect at that? Am I perfect at that now? No. Did I go from never writing to writing 3 hours a day consistently every day? No. But did I go from almost never writing on a daily basis to where I write almost every day? Yes. So it's a 2 degree adjustment. It's not a 0 degree adjustment. So that is how I take this law of power of, preach the need for change, but, reform, make sure that the reform comes slowly. And again, I get what the book is talking about in terms of, asserting power over a people or a group of people by, preaching change. And that's how you get power, is you're kind of like the revolutionary, or you're the new voice, and we get a new voice all the time in politics, or, whoever the hot new congressman is, or the new senator who's going to come in and stir up Washington and whatever. So that's great if you have dreams and ambitions in that regard, but I'm only myself and each of you are only yourselves. And I like to really focus on what I can control within my own life. I can't change the world, but I can change myself. So make small adjustments. Move the compass 1 degree, 2 degree, closer to where it is you say you want to be, whatever that is. If it's a financial goal, move the compass. Start saving a little bit. Start paying off the debt a little bit faster. Start, picking up another job. Start, cutting back on expenses, whatever it is. If it's a relationship goal, start working on your personality. Start working on your appearance. Start working on your, your character. Start working on, hobbies. Make yourself a little bit more interesting. Start doing a little bit of that every day. If you have a dream to start a business, well, start. What's step number 1? How can you just move the dial a little bit? Anyway, preach the need for change within your own life. Preach the change and then reform just a little bit to make it a difference. So that's the law of power. Now, the magic of big thinking. I'm already in love with this book. I'm only like 2 chapters in. I'm already gobbling it up. And it's been such a good reminder to me of a principle that I think that I've strayed away from, because I've kind of had my head down and I'm just sort of in this grind phase. But the book really starts out talking about the power of belief. And it's the old adage, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way, you're right. I think that was Abraham Lincoln. Don't quote me on that. And the first thing that the book does is it makes a very strict differentiation between belief and wishful thinking. Wishful thinking is, I believe I can throw a touchdown pass in the NFL. As a 43-year-old non-athletic comedian who's, only football experience is playing wide receiver on a flag football team when he was in 6th grade. Like, that's wishful thinking. The word belief to me is a lot more powerful word, or at least, the book gives it a lot more weight, because belief is not merely a statement of, it's not merely a statement. Belief is a complete absorption in an outcome that you don't see today, but of which there is no doubt you will see at some point in the future. And I look at it as it's sort of this daisy chain, or a workflow, if you will. To me, whatever it is that you really truly believe, or whatever it is that I really truly believe in my heart, not just what I say I believe, because it is really easy to give beliefs lip service. But if I truly believe, let's just give a simple example here. Like, if I truly believe that I can make $1 million in a year, let's just use that because money seems to be something that we all kind of get. Well, less than 1% of Americans make $1 million in a year, right? So now I'm saying, I believe that I can make something happen that will elevate me to less than 1% of American income earners, right, in the country. Okay, great. If I really truly believe that, then I would feel a certain way about it. And my feelings then would lead to consistent I was about to use the word major. I don't know if I want to use the word major, because I think all action is I mean, action is action, right? I mean, if we go back to sort of my 2% analogy, or 2 degrees, not 2%, adjusting the compass 1 to 2%. But it all stems from belief. And here's what's really a two-edged sword about that is if I actually don't believe that I can, then but I'm trying anyway, then that belief is also going to lead to certain emotions and certain actions that actually will produce the result of the belief. So I can say that I believe I can earn $1 million in a year, but the declaration of the belief is not actually an accurate representation of what the true belief is. What I really believe will manifest itself in my emotions and actions on a regular basis. And then the results will determine what my belief really was. And then after that year, so let's say if after a year I'm nowhere close to getting $1 million, I'm still working my same job, or, maybe I'm even worse off, maybe I lost money. So I can then look at that and go, well, you see, it didn't happen. It didn't happen because making money is hard. It didn't happen because, millionaires are just selfish, greedy people anyway, and I'm not a selfish, greedy person. And I didn't make $1 million because, it's too competitive, and there's all of these other greedy competitors, and they, took advantage of me, and blah, 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 right? Well, notice how even me saying those excuses, all of those excuses are beliefs. Because reality is, we probably don't actually know what it was that led to the $1 million. I hate that I'm using $1 million example because that's so trite. But again, I think money is a language that we all sort of get. And anyway, so I'm just using this money example just to paint sort of the metaphor here. So once I set out to do what I say I believe, well, the result is going to demonstrate what my true belief was. And it's actually a really harsh principle. And because it really is saying that whatever has happened in my life, whatever results I do have, are my fault, is my fault. Now we can get into, well, what about your childhood and what about your parents? Okay, yeah, okay. Let's not look for the exceptions and the obvious sort of deviations from this principle. But when I really look at what it is that I've been able to accomplish, it all was stemmed from what I believed I could accomplish. And the results that I was able to produce were consistent with those beliefs. And when it didn't go well, or when I had discouragements, or when things were, didn't go as I thought I had planned, when I really look at that, I go, well, did I actually really believe that result was going to happen? It's like, no, I was kind of hoping that it would happen. I was doing my best to make it happen, but there was a part of me that was kind of like, well, I hope it's going to happen, but I don't actually believe it will. And then, oh, look, it didn't really happen. So this book has really, just within that first chapter, has really got me looking at the old mirror again. Speaking of the mirror effect from yesterday's 48 Laws of Power. And yeah, I've really had to take a look at my belief systems and what it is that I say I want, but what beliefs do I actually have that are sabotaging me from accomplishing what I say I want? And by the way, I don't really have all the answers to this because I'm only like one chapter into the book, but the book in this first chapter also laid out an outline. And so hopefully it's going to teach me how I can change beliefs when like I don't really believe. For example, like believing that me and my buddy Josh Novi will be able to sell out venues, like sell out a venue for people to come see us. We haven't done that. Well, we've kind of done it. We've done it locally at our local club in Gilbert at JP's, but we haven't done it anywhere else. And actually anywhere else, we've lost money and we weren't able to sell out venues. And that's kind of been discouraging for me. And so now I'm going, oh yeah, selling tickets is hard. Belief. Facebook advertising doesn't work. Belief. It's really hard to get people out of the house to go see a comedy show. That's a belief, right? So like I'm starting to make all of these excuses, which are actually just beliefs. And those beliefs are going to influence my emotions and are going to influence my behavior and are going to produce the result of the belief. And unfortunately, in this case, it's the result I don't want. It's actually the opposite of what I want. So we have a contradiction here. I have a belief system that is contradictory to what it is that I say I want. And there's no way that both can win. One of them has to go, which is either the result that I say I want, or I have to figure out how to change the belief and really change the belief. Because as I said, belief is not a statement or a declaration. That's just wishful thinking. The belief is, how do I act? How do I behave? And what is the result? What do I produce? Whoo-wee. So I'll tell you what, everybody. Paul Green here is, I'm getting self-reflective, everybody. I am going inward. I am looking at myself. And I'm actually really excited because I feel like I've been a little neglectful of this sort of inward work lately. I feel like I've been just sort of been head down, just trying to get stuff done and then just kind of hoping that stuff will happen. And this has been a good adjustment. It's been really good for me to have discovered this book, sort of pulled my head out of my ass and starting to really look at myself more deeply. And, I have these big dreams. I talk about them all the time, but do I believe in those big dreams, or are those big dreams just wishful thinking? And that is what I get to work on moving forward. So I am going to be talking about the magic of big thinking moving forward. I will finish off the 48 Laws of Power. And of course, I always keep you updated on where I'm at and what I'm doing here on the Paul Green Comedy Podcast. So to all of you out there, think big, everybody. There's magic in it. Believe it. If you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way, you are right. Let's believe that we can. All right, everybody, that's all for today. I love you all so much. This is the Paul Green Comedy Podcast for September 2nd, 2024, episode 267. I love you all, and I will talk to you tomorrow.